It seems like 2021 was the year of Bitcoin. First, Cathie Wood came out and she said that she predicts that Bitcoin will hit $500,000 per coin. And then towards the end of 2021, Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter, came out, who is now the CEO of Square, which is now Block, and he said that Bitcoin will take over the dollar. 2022, on the other hand, not so much. I'm looking at the last 3 months of Bitcoin right here, and back in the early part of November, Bitcoin was almost $70,000 a coin. It was just under $69,000 a coin, and then ever since then, it's been trending downwards and downwards and downwards and further downwards, all the way down to below $40,000 a coin in the ending part of January. Between the November 2021 highs and the January 2022 lows, Bitcoin has fallen by 45% off of its highs. Now, to put this in perspective, a 10% drop in an asset is considered a correction. A 20% drop in an asset is considered a crash. And a 45% drop is, well, that's a pretty severe crash. And now people are wondering, is this the end for Bitcoin, or what's coming next, especially since we don't see a bottom in sight? If I go back to this 3-month chart, what you see is that in the middle to end of November, you saw Bitcoin fall, but then in the end of November, you saw Bitcoin start to rally again. But right in the end of November, after that rally, boom, you see a big Bitcoin drop, and then it just went down, 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 all the way to below $60,000 a coin. And then you saw the same thing happen in the end of December. Now Bitcoin is floating at just under $50,000 a coin, and then it starts to rally in the end of December to just over $50,000 a coin, and then boom, you see another big Bitcoin drop, but then it goes down, down, down. And then in the middle part of January, going into January 20th, you saw Bitcoin start to pick up some steam again, and then boom, Bitcoin fell hard again, this time to below $40,000 a coin. Now, before you go out and smash that panic button and start sounding the alarm and start running around in fear, what I want you to do is first smash that thumbs up button below. But you should also remember that these types of crashes and corrections are really not that uncommon in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. I mean, it's still a newer asset class. You still have a lot of speculation, and because of that, you have a lot of volatility. You see big booms and busts happen pretty often. If I go back to this Bitcoin chart and I look at the 1-year graph for Bitcoin, now you can see how volatile it really is. You see the big booms and busts and booms and busts. But what you'll see is that in January of 2021, Bitcoin was trading for around $30,000 a coin. Now, this current price of Bitcoin doesn't look so bad if you compare it to where it was just a year ago, but the reason why people are getting so worried is because they saw this big boom and now the big bust. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general has a lot of people that are trying to just get rich quick. They're looking at it as a speculative investment, so they are running up prices, they're buying, they're using debt to go and buy as much as they can, and then they will pump and dump. They will buy it, make a little bit of money, and sell. Or they'll see their asset go down a little bit, and then they'll panic sell at a big loss. And this is what's contributing to the major price volatilities in things like Bitcoin. And you can see that just with what's happened over the last 12 months. Between January of 2021 and April of 2021, we saw Bitcoin rally by 100%. It went from $30,000 a coin to $60,000 a coin in just a few months. Between April 2021 and July of 2021, we saw Bitcoin get cut in half. It was a 50% drop because it went from $60,000 a coin back down to $30,000 a coin. From July to November, Bitcoin rallied again, now by 125%, because you saw the price go from $30,000 a coin up to $68,000 a coin. And then from November of 2021 to January of 2022, we almost saw Bitcoin get cut in half again. This time Bitcoin fell by 45% because now we saw the price of Bitcoin go from $68,000 back in November all the way down to around $38,000 $1,000 a coin. So if you invest in Bitcoin, or if you've been thinking about investing in Bitcoin, the first thing you have to do is you got to have a strong appetite for volatility and fluctuations in price, because just within 1 year, we saw the price of Bitcoin double and then get cut in half, and then double and then get cut in half again. And if you can't stomach that sort of risk, you shouldn't be investing in Bitcoin. Now, at this point in the video, you're probably thinking something along the lines of, okay, Jaspreet, I get it. Bitcoin is volatile, it goes up and down. What does this mean for me and what's coming next? Well, there's 3 things that I want to do to help you understand and answer that question. That way you know exactly what to do with your money. First, is this the end of the Bitcoin boom? I'm going to be talking about that. Then I'm going to be talking about, will Bitcoin continue to have use, or will it have more use in the future? And then I'll be talking about, what do you do and what should you do? So let me start by talking here. Is this the end for Bitcoin? Now, I've brought on different guests on my channel where we've talked about Bitcoin, and I like to bring on guests with differing opinions. That way you can hear from both sides of the argument, because intelligence is when you listen to both sides and then you can make a decision for yourself. And some guests have said that Bitcoin is going to zero, it is a big Ponzi scheme and it's going to fail. And I brought on other guests who are big believers in Bitcoin, who think that Bitcoin will never stop going up. So when it comes to understanding if this is the end of Bitcoin, the first thing you have to do is come up with your own opinion of Bitcoin. I'm going to give my opinion here. When I talk about 3, what do you do? I'll talk about what I'm doing with my money, especially when it comes to Bitcoin here. But you have to come up with your own opinion first. And you have to understand, do you believe in Bitcoin or do you not believe in Bitcoin? So let me give you a quick clip from my interview with Peter Schiff, where he says that Bitcoin is going to zero.
If any of your viewers own Bitcoin under the delusion that they have a safe investment, right, you're wrong, right? And you need to start selling your Bitcoin right now. Don't even wait for the finish of this interview. Just start selling. Because if you're looking for safety, you can't look at Bitcoin. Right? Even if you believe in Bitcoin, you must acknowledge that it is highly speculative. And you must also acknowledge the possibility that it goes to zero. So the only money that anybody should have in Bitcoin is money that they're willing to lose, right? So whatever your risk tolerance is, do not put 1 nickel more into Bitcoin than you're willing to lose. So if you've got, $10,000 in Bitcoin, if you can't say, if that goes to zero, I'm totally fine, then 10,000 is too much. I don't know. If you have 100,000 in Bitcoin and you're not okay with that going to zero, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to affect your life. It's not going to stop you from paying your mortgage or retiring or doing the things that you want to do. If that's your fun money, you have to look at it like, I just took this money to Las Vegas and I know I'm going to lose it. I might make it. I might hit it big, but I'm going to have a good time. I'm willing to lose this money. That's how you have to look at Bitcoin. So if you're not looking at it like that, then just get out of it. It's not for you. Or at least reduce your position to the point that you are comfortable losing 100% of whatever you leave in Bitcoin. And that goes with any cryptocurrency. They're all the same. They're all highly speculative tokens. But then beyond that, do I think that these tokens are going to succeed? No. I think that Bitcoin is just a pyramid scheme, chain letter, Ponzi. Bitcoin has no actual value.
Peter Schiff, who you just listened to, is a very smart economist. He's a gold person. He manages some hedge funds, but he does not believe in Bitcoin. Now we can compare that to somebody like Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor is the CEO of a publicly traded company, MicroStrategies, and his company has purchased billions of dollars worth of Bitcoins. He was the leading brain behind that to go out and buy $3 billion worth of Bitcoin back in 2020, and he believes the complete opposite. You can hear what he says.
The US dollar is backed by the United States Army, by the military might of the United States and the police force, and the belief in the United States of America. Bitcoin is backed by the network of Bitcoin proof of work miners. There are millions of Bitcoin miners scattered all around the world. There are billions of dollars of capital. There are billions of dollars of energy that are used to defend the network. There are 10,000 plus nodes running the Bitcoin software on it. There are tens of thousands of Lightning nodes to process transaction payments. And there's hundreds of millions of people that believe in it. So in fact, Bitcoin is an ecosystem. It is a combination of political support. It's the support of the electorate. It's the support of the politicians. It's the support of the miners. It's the support of the holders. It's the protocol itself, which is built into tens of thousands of companies and built into many political jurisdictions. And that makes it the most secure ledger in the world, the most secure database, the most unhackable, most indestructible database. And it also makes it the strongest brand in the world. It's not just the greatest monetary brand, it's the greatest brand. And by that, I mean, it's worth 1.3 or $1.2 trillion right now. That's all brand value. That's a lot more valuable than the brand value in Coca-Cola or Apple or Google. And everybody in the world recognizes Bitcoin as money. The closest thing to that maybe is the United States dollar. But the point is the US dollar is an inflationary currency. It's losing value every month. And Bitcoin is appreciating asset. It's gaining purchasing power every year.
The people that are part of the Bitcoin tribe really aren't that surprised by this Bitcoin drop. They know that Bitcoin is volatile, they know that it fluctuates, and they know that we've seen a lot of highs and a lot of speculation. So for a lot of the Bitcoin supporters, they're using this dip as an opportunity to buy more. Now everybody else who doesn't like Bitcoin, who hates Bitcoin, who thinks Bitcoin is going to fail or that it's a Ponzi scheme, thinks that this is the beginning of the end of Bitcoin, and they're just sitting there eating their popcorn, watching people lose money. If you're not sure where on that line that you fall, this will help you understand that, because you have to understand, will Bitcoin have use in the future? Bitcoin is hoping to have use in 3 different areas: as a property, as a currency, and as a store of energy. Starting with the first being a property, Bitcoin has a limited supply. You can only have 21 million Bitcoins. So the idea is, if you own one of the Bitcoins or a piece of those Bitcoins, well, now you own a piece of that 21 million Bitcoin pie. That's it. There will be no more Bitcoins. And so if more people start to adopt Bitcoin, more people start to believe in Bitcoin, and more people start to save their money in Bitcoin, well, now you have a limited supply with increasing demand. If you have any sort of property or product with a limited supply and demand that's consistently going up, well, that must make the value of that asset go up. Now, that doesn't mean it has to only go up. You can see it go up and down, will fluctuate like what we've seen happen, but that's the idea behind Bitcoin being a property. People look at it like a limited amount of space in the digital world, this technology in the digital world, and if you own a piece of it, you own a piece of it, and that piece cannot be diluted. Compare that to our dollars, where if you own $100, the value of the $100 can be diluted if the Fed keeps printing more money. As we see more inflation, the value of your $100 goes down. You don't see that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the opposite. If you have $100 worth of Bitcoin, you buy that today, well, if more and more people want to buy Bitcoin and more people buy Bitcoin, the value of your Bitcoin will actually go up because more people will want to own it. The second value with Bitcoin can be as a currency, because you can exchange Bitcoin in exchange for other things. Now, a lot of people are kind of shifting away from this value because they're looking at Bitcoin more as a property than something that they want to actually exchange. A lot of people now say that they want to save Bitcoin, and instead of selling their Bitcoin, they would rather borrow against it. So if you have $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, instead of selling it and then having $1,000, they would rather borrow $800 worth of debt and then spend that $800 worth of debt and then pay that money back plus interest. But using Bitcoin as a currency is still another potential use with Bitcoin. We're seeing more and more companies start to adopt Bitcoin as a payment system. Like in 2021, we even saw MasterCard come out and say that they were going to start integrating cryptocurrencies into their platforms and into their system. And then Bitcoin also operates as a store of energy. So you can take a look at something like gold to understand this. Gold is a store of value because it takes time, effort, and labor to mine an ounce of gold. And so the effort that it takes to mine an ounce of gold is represented through the physical gold. That's why we know that physical gold has value, because it takes time, effort, and labor to mine an ounce of gold. Bitcoin kind of works the same way, because if you want to produce Bitcoin, it's called mining Bitcoin, and it takes electricity, energy, in order to mine that Bitcoin. A computer has to go through math problems. This takes electricity, this takes energy, and then this energy and electricity is harnessed in the form of a digital Bitcoin. So if you own Bitcoin, you actually own the stored energy, which is that Bitcoin. So the intrinsic value that Bitcoin has is the ability to store that energy, it's the ability to use it as a currency, and it's the ability to treat it like property. But for any of that to work, you still have to have the belief that this Bitcoin has value. Because if you don't believe that this Bitcoin has value, then it doesn't really matter if it's a store of energy. It doesn't really matter if it can be a store of property. It doesn't really matter that you can use it as a currency. I mean, you can use markers as a currency if people believed in that. But if you don't believe in Bitcoin, then none of this matters. If you do believe in it, then the people that believe in it can then exchange in it and use that Bitcoin for that reason. And this brings me to point number 3, which is what do you do? What do you do? And what you do is going to depend on what you believe. So I like the idea of owning Bitcoin. I don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin. I don't like to speculate with that. When I make my investments, these are things that I want to own for the long term. Now, I do believe that there is going to be a place where digital currency and digital money and things like Bitcoin will have real value in the future. I don't know when that will be. I don't think that it's going to be straight line up. I think that we're going to see a lot of volatility in the late part of 2021. Before the Bitcoin crash started, I put out a video talking about how you could see a potential 2001 style dot-com crash in cryptocurrency because cryptocurrencies are very volatile. It had been going pretty much straight up, and a lot of people were coming out saying that they will never lose money in cryptocurrency. Anytime somebody says that they will never lose money, that they're going to make money hand over fist, and that things cannot go wrong, that's when I get worried. But when it comes down to the actual asset, the question is, what are you owning and what do you want to own? There's a lot of crap out there, and there are a lot of crap coins out there. That, mixed with a lot of debt and a lot of speculation, can create bubbles. But that doesn't mean that everything is worthless. Like if you go back to the 2001 dot-com bubble and bust, when that bubble burst, we saw a lot of dot-com companies vanish. They were wiped out. But that didn't make the internet obsolete. I mean, all the crappy companies were gone after that, but it was a refresh. That's when the good companies were able to thrive, and they were the ones that made it through. So now, today, the internet is not gone. It's thriving more than ever, but you had to go through the refresh. Just like the 2008 crash. When the real estate bubble burst, it was a refresh. All the toxic loans, all the bad assets, those were wiped out, and then the real estate market was able to grow again. So now, as I think over the next 10 years and what's going to happen, I think that the world's going to move more digital. I think that the world's going to move more towards the internet. I think that more people are going to do things online. We're already seeing the growth of the metaverse. So I think that is going to be a very positive thing for cryptocurrency. So yeah, I think that we could see a massive boom and bust in cryptocurrency, but I don't think that's going to mean cryptocurrency is going to go away. I think that it's going to be a refresh for the good cryptocurrencies. And I like Bitcoin. Now again, I can't tell you what to do. You got to make your own decisions. But what I've been doing is as Bitcoin goes lower, I buy more. I talked about the strategy a lot back in 2020 when we saw the stock market in free fall when the pandemic first hit. I said that I was buying stocks. Anytime I saw the stock market fall by 10% or a company that I want to invest in fall by 10 to 15%, I would come in and buy. And if it fell by another 10 to 15%, then I would buy even more aggressively. And if it fell by another 10 to 15%, then I would buy even more aggressively. So I bought in phases. I called it drip investing, where as things went down, I would buy more aggressively. The further down it went, the more aggressively I would buy. I'm doing the same thing here with Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin will have more value in the future. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it'll have more value in the future. That's why as it goes down, I buy more, and the further down it goes, the more aggressively I buy. But I also understand that Bitcoin for me is not my whole portfolio. My biggest position is real estate. I have stocks. I also have cryptocurrency. I also invest in startup companies. And I also own physical gold. So cryptocurrency like Bitcoin is one of my positions, and I am buying more as it goes down. But I also understand that it is not my entire position, because I understand that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is a more speculative position. It is not my entire portfolio, but it is something that I want to own more of as it goes down. So for me and investors that like Bitcoin, well, when cryptocurrency and Bitcoin comes down, it's just a great buying opportunity, because then we have the opportunity to come in and buy more. The further down it goes, the more aggressively that I'll come in and buy. Now, you have to make the best decision for you. I can't tell you what to do. I don't know what your goals are, and I don't know what your time horizon is, so you're going to have a different investment criteria than I do. I think the best way that I can answer this question, what do you do, is just going back to what Michael Saylor said. What he said is, if you are not willing to hold on to Bitcoin for 10 years, you shouldn't own it for 10 minutes. This is something that if you believe in, you want to hold it for the long term, not just be a trader. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what asset class you're talking about, the people that make the most money are the investors, and it's not the people that are trying to get rich quick. What's up, everybody? If you want to continue building your financial education, I linked a relevant video here that I think you'll love, and as an added bonus, I have a free guide on how you can start generating passive income that you can download and read for free. All you got to do is click that button below.
Ultimately, Bitcoin is the one thing